Hello and welcome into the KE Report. Shad and Corey here as your host, and today we're getting an update from West Red Lake Gold Mines. West Red Lake Gold Mines is traded on the TSX.V under the ticker WRLG and on the OTCQB under the ticker WRLGF. And I'm joined today with the Vice President of Communication at West Red Lake Gold Mines, Gwen Preston. And Gwen, always great to have you on the show. It's always good to get an update. People are chomping at the bit to see when this Madsen mine is going to go into production. And you put out a news release earlier in the month on April the 9th that did a nice job of just summarizing a lot of the achievements to date that the company has done, both underground and on surface. I wondered if you want to maybe kick it off there with just a quick review of the key takeaways, but also the positioning the company is in now to really gear up towards production.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on again, Shad and Corey. Always great to be here. Yeah, that news release that we put out on April 9th was a big one in a looking back way. And I say that lots of people want to know what's coming next, and I'm sure we'll get to that in just a moment. But I mean, the looking back is what enables us. We wanted to run through all the things that we have done in, 22 months on site that have put us in the position to be on the schedule that we said, which is that we wanted to be putting mineralized material consistently through the mill by the middle of 2025. That's getting pretty darn close. We're almost at the end of April right now, so we're very close to that time frame. And there were a whole bunch of things that we needed to accomplish to get to that point. And so this news release was really about that, like how many meters of underground development that we needed to do, get the PFS out, do a test mining program, do a bulk sampling program, complete the connection drift, which was the largest of the capital projects that we did on site to really underpin an efficient operation, do a tailings dam lift, build a camp, build a mine dry, install a crusher. There's been a lot of things. And so it was a good exercise for us internally too, to just go through that list, and make sure that everybody on site saw the scale of that list as a reminder of we've been working really hard. And so it's nice to step back sometimes and get a little reminder of all the things that we've done and that we have done them as promised. That's really important for us as a team. And so the next thing on that list, the next really big thing, and certainly easy to say that the next thing is going to be the most important thing that West Red Lake Gold will have done since acquiring this Madsen mine, is going to be putting out the results of this bulk sample. And I was working on that news release just before jumping on the call with you. So that is just right around the corner.
So, Gwen, I think that's what everyone's waiting for, is to see what comes out of that bulk sample. And I guess giving a little preview of it, how can investors understand? Bulk sample, it's not the same as mining, but you are going to be pulling from different areas of the resource, trying to give a representation of what it could look like mining-wise. So what should investors be focused on when they see that bulk sample results?
Absolutely. I think I really appreciate you asking the question, what should we be focused on? Because it's a technical thing, but at the end of the day, it distills down to a message that is not technical. So the technical is underground mining has its complexity, and you got to get down there. You got to understand the environment that you're working in, especially when it's a mine that has old stopes and has, different areas of the resource. And so we wanted to do a test mining program to get ourselves going underground, to make sure that our miners ramped up safely and accurately in their ability to mine, to make sure that we understood the best mining approach in all the different areas. So the test mining program was really useful for all of that. We are better miners, and our ability to ramp up operations at Madsen is going to be smoother and better for having done this program. But when it comes to the news release that we expect to put out next week, what we're doing is comparing the expected tons and gold grade in each of the areas, the 3 parts of the mine that we tested. What were the expected tons and grade that we thought from our model, from our engineered design, we were going to pull out of each of those areas? And what tons and grade did we actually pull out of those areas? And that is, of course, fundamentally important, because the prior operator, that was fundamental to their stumble, right? They expected to deliver rock to the mill that averaged like 9 grams per ton, and they delivered rock to the mill that for the most part of their operations averaged only about 3.5 grams per ton. So big miss. And so what investors will be watching for most closely is that we line up. So our expected tons and grade matches the actual tons and grade. So I think that's the most important thing that people are going to look for. I think the other layer, slightly more complicated, but not really too hard to understand, is that we're explaining how the pre-feasibility study was a very, very conservative look at what the Madsen mine could be. It used a very low gold price in deciding what resources to consider in the mine plan. And that meant that it created a mine plan that focused only on the highest grade parts of the Madsen mine. But it makes sense to mine more than just the highest grade parts of the Madsen resource. And I say that because when you can mine wider areas that include some slightly lower grade tons, you can do it for much lower cost. You can do long hole stoping instead of cut and fill. So you can do lower cost mining, and you can mine tons that, especially even using a conservative look at today's gold price, using something in the mid to high 2000s instead of the price that's much lower, those tons, the 2-3 gram per ton tons that are right beside the high grade tons, they make money to mine. So the stopes that we mined in the test mining and bulk sample program, we engineered those, we approached those in exactly the same way that we will engineer and approach every stope as we mine the Madsen mine, which is we want to maximize the amount of money that we make mining this deposit. And so if it makes money to mine the 2.5 gram per ton that is right beside a 9 gram per ton, because we can mine using a wider method at lower mining cost, and the 2 gram per ton pays anyways, we're going to do that because the point here is to safely make money. And so that just leads to the other layer. So it's just this bulk sample is our first opportunity to really explain to people, here's the opportunity at Madsen. It is likely bigger than the pre-feasibility study outlined. And here's our example. Here's the first set of data that people can chew on to understand why the Madsen mine, in a stronger gold price environment than the $1,680 gold price that they used to determine a mine plan in the pre-feasibility study, using a stronger gold price than that, the Madsen mine is more than the pre-feasibility study lays out. So that's like the more complicated look at it. But the first look is, did we deliver the expected tons and grade? And if we do, that validates our entire approach to this project. We bought this project because we believe that the appropriate technical approach to geology and engineering and mining methods could unlock the value of Madsen. And if we can deliver expected tons and grade, if we can meet our model, then our entire approach, is validated. So that's what's coming next week. As you can tell from the speed at which I'm talking, I'm a little bit excited about it.
Well, Gwen, it is exciting. And yeah, making money mining is kind of the whole point of it. So we should also mention that in addition to a proof of concept and looking at the reconciliation from what's expected to what actually comes out, you're also going to make money on the bulk sample that should cash up the company again, especially at the gold prices you've been selling into. But I wanted to also celebrate one of the milestones, and you mentioned it at the onset, that the company has completed the underground connection drift. And I'm going to include some photos of that underneath this interview for people listening in if you want to go see it. Or you can go check out their press releases, and there's images in the press release. But I think this is significant because it ties into that underground highway we've discussed in the past, Gwen, about how you're going to be able to move ore in a mining scenario more efficiently underground with bigger trucks, with ways to cut down on congestion versus how Pure Gold was doing it on top of the surface and driving through town. So maybe talk again about what a key milestone this was, and now there's been a break on through to the other side moment in the connection drift.
Yeah, the connection drift is a really gratifying project to be done. I mean, there's a number of projects that we undertook at the Madsen mine site to make the mine operate efficiently when we started up again. And the connection drift was the largest of those projects. I mean, it was a $10 million project to do a 1.4 kilometer underground tunnel that connects the two sides of the mine. And by doing so, enables the beautiful, new, large, modern east portal that the prior operator developed. That operator then Pure Gold abandoned that portal because they didn't want to spend essentially the $10 million to do the connection drift as we've done it. They walked away from that challenge. So we took that on. And so now we've connected over to that large portal that has smooth ramps and is right beside the crusher, and you don't have to go past the town and all of those lovely things. And yeah, moving material efficiently. If you want to distill mining down into its really key things, it's about mining the right rocks and knowing what the grade of metal is that you expect in those rocks, and then moving and processing those rocks efficiently. That's what mining really comes down to. You got to do both of those things, mine the right rocks and then move and process the rocks efficiently. So these capital projects that we took on to make sure we could do the second of those tasks appropriately. It's really fantastic to be checking those off. And I mean, the connection drift, really important among those. Installing a primary crusher, another big one. Even things like, getting the camp at site up and running. That's about being able to work efficiently. That's about, efficient use of capital. We need to be able to bring good workers in, because good workers are fundamental to efficiency and success. And we can get a lot of workers from Red Lake, but we can't get everyone that we need in the local area. So the ability to house people is supporting our ability to run an efficient mine. And so, yeah, checking these things off is very exciting. And now we're looking ahead to check off the next big milestone of the bulk sample. I was saying I was writing the news release before we got on this call. I got a email this morning that the last ton of the final stope of the bulk sample finished processing during the night last night. So this week is going to be about just making sure we crunch all the numbers, and we have to give the mill time to pull the last carbon screens and make sure we get the gold out of them so we can make sure that the numbers are complete. And that'll set us up to be able to report those numbers shortly.
Gwen, what about the continued capital expenses that need to be undertaken here to get to that end of Q2, halfway through this year, when we could see maybe that flip being switched or a bit more production coming out of the mine? Any major capital projects that we still need to be aware of? And as everybody asks, how is the company doing for capital? Are you going to be needing to raise again?
We do not expect to raise capital. We referenced the fact that we produced gold in our bulk sample. We knew that we were going to produce gold in our bulk sample. In our forecast for cash balances, as we ramped this mine up, we estimated that we would sell the gold from our bulk sample at $2,500, because you set up that cash forecast 6 months ago and use a somewhat conservative gold price at the time. And then, of course, instead, last week we were able to sell some gold at just above $3,300. So that was a nice little bit of excess from the gold sales, which was really nice. But certainly we have put a huge amount of time and energy into ensuring that between the cash we have on hand, what's left of our debt facility, and the proceeds that we have from this gold sale, that we're supported to get ourselves through to the middle of the year, like you say, to getting mineralization consistently put through the mill. And then this strong gold environment, it's a lovely time to be starting a mine, for sure, into a gold environment like this. So we're very driven to get there, and it's right around the corner.
Well, Gwen, I just want to ask a question that I hope taps into some of the questions that we get people emailing us in. And that is, what does the ramp up from the bulk sample to commercial production look like, operational and from a time standpoint?
Yeah, for sure. So we've always said ramp up through the second half of the year. So, you pull that to the beginning of that time frame, and it's make sure we have the mill running and we're putting ore through the mill by the middle of the year. So we will take a pause of milling over the next few weeks. Really, it's about making sure that we have a sufficient stockpile. You always, in an underground mine, want to make sure that you have, call it a fallback stockpile. If something were to happen and you couldn't get to a stope area, or something, there was an electrical problem and you couldn't mine underground for a couple of days, you got to have a stockpile, right? So that you have material that you can continue to put into your mill. So we'll spend a bit of time making sure that our stockpile grows to, our high grade stockpile grows to the scale that we want it to be for that, risk mitigation of normal mine operations. And then at some point in June, before the middle of the year, we'll turn that mill back on and start putting material through it. And then we will make sure that our goal is to ramp up. We'll probably start at about 600 and ramp up to 800 tons per day through the second half of the year. And I mean, we are very focused on ensuring that we ramp up successfully. And sure, we want to get to commercial production and we want to make that declaration, but our first focus is on making sure that we ramp up sustainably and successfully and that we deliver on costs. And so that's going to be our focus in the second half of the year, is just making sure that this mine is what it can be. And we're pretty excited to do that.
All right. Well, I think that addresses kind of a lay of the land of what things look like through the balance of the year. I appreciate you getting into some of the nuances of not just what's coming with the bulk sample, but the reasons behind why you did it, because you think that there's the potential to outperform the PFS. So a lot to look into, and we'll be looking forward to the next week or two when you get the news out on the bulk sample. Gwen, we'll get you back on and we'll unpack it and then do a deep dive. But this is a lot of good information as far as the progress that West Red Lake Gold Mines has made to date and is continuing to make. If people want to follow along with the news and dig down into some of the information we covered, click on the link in the show notes. It takes you right over to the West Red Lake Gold Mines website, straight to their news section. And Gwen, looking forward to our next conversation, which doesn't sound like it's going to be too far away.
It certainly won't be. Hopefully, we'll be talking next week, my friends.